$10,000 is not a lot of money. It will not change your lifestyle. It will not pay off your debt. It will not make you financially free. But something genuinely different happens when you get there, and I'm going to explain exactly what it is because most people who haven't hit it yet don't fully believe this is real. I'm Max of Monkey Money, and the shift that happens at $10,000 is not about the number. It's about what the number does to your decision-making environment. And understanding that is the key to understanding why this milestone feels like a bigger deal than the math suggests it should. Let's start with the psychological shift, because it's the one that surprises people most. Below $10,000, most financial decisions are made under a specific kind of pressure, the pressure of not being able to afford a mistake. Every unexpected expense is a potential crisis. A car repair, a medical bill, a delay in a paycheck, a failed appliance, any of these can undo weeks or months of financial progress and sometimes land you in debt at 22% interest that takes even longer to climb out of. That pressure shapes how you think about everything. You take the first job offer because you can't afford to wait for a better one. You stay in a bad situation because the risk of leaving is too high. You say yes to things you should say no to, and no to things you should say yes to, because every decision is being filtered through the lens of, can I afford for this to go wrong? At $10,000, that filter changes. A $1,000 to $3,000 unexpected expense is no longer a catastrophe. It's an inconvenience. You can absorb it without going into debt, without disrupting your next month's bills, and without the cascading stress that a financial crisis produces when there's no cushion underneath it. That shift from catastrophic to inconvenient is not just emotionally significant. It produces measurably better decision-making across every area of your financial life because you're no longer making choices under the cognitive impairment of financial stress. Research on financial scarcity consistently shows that the mental bandwidth consumed by financial anxiety reduces effective decision-making capacity in ways comparable to significant sleep deprivation. The $10,000 milestone is, in practical terms, a cognitive upgrade. There is also a concrete behavioral change that most people notice within 30 to 60 days of crossing $10,000. They stop checking their bank account with anxiety. Before the milestone, opening the banking app carries a specific dread, the fear that the number is smaller than you need it to be. After the milestone, the check becomes information rather than a verdict. That single change in the emotional texture of a daily habit is one of the most underrated quality of life improvements that $10,000 produces. The second shift at $10,000 is in your relationship with risk and time. When you have nothing in savings, time feels like an enemy. Every day that passes without more income is a day closer to something going wrong with no way to absorb it. You become risk-averse in ways that are actually financially counterproductive. Refusing to leave a bad job because the gap feels too dangerous, refusing to negotiate because any income is better than none, refusing to wait for a better opportunity because waiting feels like falling behind. At $10,000, time becomes an asset rather than a threat. You can negotiate a job offer rather than accepting the first number because you have 6 to 8 weeks of runway if the negotiation fails. You can pass on a client or a project that's not a good fit because you're not desperate for the immediate cash. You can wait for the right opportunity rather than rushing into the available one. The compound effect of making slightly better decisions because you have time and options rather than zero time and no options is enormous over the course of a career. Most people never quantify this, but it's one of the highest impact benefits of reaching the $10,000 milestone. There is a word for this that most personal finance content avoids because it sounds too abstract: identity. Before $10,000, most people privately identify as someone who is trying to get financially stable. After $10,000, the evidence makes that identity concrete. You're not trying anymore. You did it. And that transition from aspiring to having done is one of the most durable psychological shifts that any financial milestone produces. The habits you built to get to $10,000 are not temporary behaviors. They are who you are now. And who you are now is someone who reaches financial targets. Here is the banana version of the survival to strategy shift because I think the analogy captures something the finance frameworks miss. When your stash is nearly empty, every single banana matters. You can't take any risks with them because you can't afford to lose even one. You hoard, you stress, and you make conservative decisions that protect the existing supply rather than growing it. When your stash crosses 10,000 bananas, something changes. You can afford to plant some. You can afford to let a few go bad while you figure out the optimal storage system. You can afford to experiment with distribution strategies because the loss of 5% of the stash no longer threatens your survival. That's the shift, not the number, the freedom the number provides. Here's a concrete example of how this plays out in a career context. A person with zero savings who receives a job offer below what they are worth will almost always take it, because the alternative is continued uncertainty with no cushion. A person with $10,000 who receives the same offer can counter, can walk away, and can wait 6 to 8 weeks for a better outcome without financial collapse. The difference in that single negotiation, if it produces even a $5,000 higher salary, exceeds the interest that $10,000 would earn in an entire year. The cushion pays dividends in ways that never show up on a savings account statement. The third shift is in how guilt functions in your financial life. Below $10,000, spending money on anything that isn't a necessity comes with a specific kind of guilt that's hard to shake. The vacation you take becomes anxiety-producing because you know you're spending money you might need. The dinner out feels like a mistake because you're aware of how small the cushion is. This guilt is not irrational. It's appropriate to the financial environment, but it produces a kind of chronic, low-grade stress around spending that makes it hard to genuinely enjoy money, even when you're spending it on things you've chosen. At $10,000, the guilt starts to lift. You can take a $500 vacation and genuinely enjoy it, because you know the cushion absorbs it without threatening anything critical. You can go to dinner without the mental accounting running in the background, because one dinner doesn't materially change a position that has meaningful safety built into it. This is what people mean when they say money buys peace of mind. It's not that $10,000 makes you rich. It's that $10,000 makes the spending you do feel actually free rather than guilty. If you've made it this far, hit those like and subscribe buttons because it genuinely helps us keep making content like this. It is worth noting that the internal shift at $10,000 is not uniform across everyone who hits it. For someone who grew up in financial scarcity, the shift can feel almost disorienting at first, because the financial safety they now have is genuinely unfamiliar. The habits of vigilance, anxiety, and hyperconservation that were adaptive in a scarce environment do not automatically update when the environment changes. For these people, the work of hitting $10,000 is matched by a second kind of work: learning to trust that the cushion is real, that it will still be there tomorrow, and that it is safe to start making decisions from a position of stability rather than fear. Now let's talk about the part that most milestone content skips, which is what the shift at $10,000 actually isn't. It is not a lifestyle upgrade. Most people who haven't hit this milestone imagine that reaching it will feel like a visible, tangible improvement in how their life looks. A nicer apartment, a better car, the freedom to spend on things they've been denying themselves. But most people who have hit $10,000 for the first time report that the external change is almost imperceptible. They're still living the same life. They're still driving the same car. The apartment is the same. What has changed is internal. The texture of how they experience their own financial decisions. The same restaurant feels different, Not because it's more expensive, but because choosing it doesn't feel like a risk anymore. The same job negotiation feels different. Not because the negotiating tactics changed, but because the fallback position is real. The same month feels different. Not because there's more money flowing through it, but because the baseline anxiety has dropped. This is the not what you think part of the milestone. The life doesn't look different, it feels different. The fourth shift is the one that has the most direct financial impact going forward. The goalpost moves. Almost universally, people who hit $10,000 in savings immediately start thinking about $25,000. And here's the interesting thing, they're not discouraged by that, they're energized by it. Because the experience of getting to $10,000 proves something to them about their own capability that abstract belief in their potential never could. They demonstrated, with evidence, that they can set a large financial goal, build the habits to pursue it consistently, and reach it. That proof is more valuable than the $10,000 itself for most people because it restructures how they relate to future financial targets. The $25,000 goal doesn't feel like the same overwhelming thing the $10,000 goal felt like before they started. It feels like the next step in a trajectory that's already proven to work. The fifth shift is in the quality of your investment decisions. Below $10,000, the urgency of financial pressure makes people susceptible to shortcuts, get-rich-quick schemes, high-risk speculative bets, anything that promises rapid resolution of the financial anxiety. These decisions almost universally make the situation worse, but they feel rational because the pressure of scarcity makes the promise of a fast solution feel proportionate to the problem. At $10,000, the pressure has reduced enough that patience becomes a realistic strategy. You can put money in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5% and let it compound because you don't desperately need it to do something dramatic immediately. You can begin building a position in a diversified index fund and leave it alone for years because the $10,000 cushion insulates you from needing to sell at the worst possible time. The quality of financial decisions that are accessible to someone with $10,000 in savings is categorically better than the quality of decisions accessible to someone operating from zero. Here is the second banana moment, and it is specifically about the goalpost shift. The moment you reach 10,000 bananas in the stash, you stop thinking about survival and start thinking about optimization. How should the bananas be stored to minimize spoilage? Which growing methods produce the most bananas per hour of effort? Is there a way to have bananas producing more bananas without you doing all the work? These are strategy questions, not survival questions. And you can only ask them once the stash is large enough that you're not spending all your mental energy protecting what you have. The sixth shift at $10,000 is the one with the most direct long-term financial impact, and it is the one most often overlooked in the celebration of the milestone. $10,000 is the threshold at which compound interest moves from a theoretical concept to a felt experience. At $1,000 earning 4.5% annually, you generate $45 in a year. That is not nothing, but it does not feel like anything either. At $10,000 earning the same rate, you generate $450 in a year, roughly $37 per month, without contributing a single additional dollar. That shift from invisible to visible is important not because $450 is life-changing, but because it makes the mechanism of compounding emotionally real for the first time. Once you can feel it working, the motivation to protect it and grow it changes qualitatively. You stop saving to reach a number and start saving to feed an engine you can now actually see running. So, what should you actually do when you cross $10,000? First, keep the cushion intact. Do not immediately redirect it to debt paydown or investment if doing so removes the safety function it's providing. The $10,000 is doing financial work as a cushion even while it sits in a savings account, and removing it prematurely returns you to the decision-making environment you just escaped. Second, Optimize the yield on the cushion. $10,000 in a traditional savings account at 0.5% earns $50 per year. $10,000 in a high-yield savings account at 4.5% earns $450 per year. That $400 difference requires no additional contribution and no additional risk, just moving the money to where it earns what it should. Third, use the cushion as the launch pad rather than the destination. Once you have $10,000 in a high-yield savings account, every dollar you save going forward has a different purpose. Instead of rebuilding the cushion, you're building toward the next milestone. Your first Roth IRA contribution, your first investment account, your first step toward the $25,000 mark. The $10,000 changes what every subsequent dollar is for, and that change is the most important thing that happens at this milestone. Not the balance, not the lifestyle, not the interest earned, the shift in what comes next. So drop a comment and tell me, are you working toward $10,000 right now, or did you recently hit it? If this video helped you see why $10,000 is about more than the number, subscribe to Monkey Money. Every week we bring you the financial psychology that explains why the milestones feel the way they do. See you in the next video.